Hey everyone! Break out your notebooks, because it's time for Muggz' MK Classroom. That's right, it's finally time to wrap up our lesson on sniping by tackling the lob items. If you missed part 1, you may want to check that lesson out since I covered all the line items there. But without further ado, let us begin today's lesson in which we learn how to become deadly assassins with bananas and bob-ombs. Just as a quick refresher, there are two types of items that one can snipe with in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, in my opinion. As mentioned already, these two types are, number 1, the lob items, including the banana peel and the bob-omb, and number 2, the line items, including the fire flower, boomerang flower, and the green shell. The line items move, as I discussed in part 1, along the ground in a line. Again, if you want the full treatment of the line items, check out part 1 of this lesson. Lob items, which we will focus on for the remainder of this video, move through the air in an arc. Your character lobs these items on the throw, and the banana peel sticks the landing while the bob-omb bounces around until it settles down, upon which it will slowly walk around until it detonates. So, if you did watch part 1 on the line items, you may recall that I mainly focused on the green shell, since the concept could then easily generalize to fireballs and the boomerang. Here, however, we only have 2 lob items, bananas and bombs. Therefore, for this lesson, I am going to discuss each item separately. So, let's begin with the banana peel. The main reason I want to begin with bananas are, number 1, they're more common than bombs. Number 2, they are less risky to practice with than bombs. And number 3, they behave more simply than bombs. Reason 1 is pretty self-explanatory, as is reason 2, since banana peels don't explode like bombs, making the bombs much more dangerous. Reason 3 is simply because the banana peel sticks the landing. As in, once its bottom side touches the ground, it sticks to that spot. This is in sharp contrast to the bob-omb, which will ricochet and bounce around. Note how they both move similarly through the air, but once they hit the ground, it's a different story. To predict where a bomb will end if we throw it, it helps us if we can predict its initial landing spot. But with the banana peel, however, predicting its initial landing spot is the same as predicting its ending spot. If we learn to fire the banana with accuracy, then we have learned step 1 to firing the bob-omb with accuracy. With that said, let's get our banana on. To learn how to fire the banana with accuracy, let's first do some experiments. We can find a chunk of track that looks simple and flat, like this section of Excite Bike Arena, for example. And since we're learning about bananas, I've adjusted the items to bananas only. Now, let's observe how bananas behave once we let them go under different conditions. So here we're going to throw while not moving, just a complete standstill. Here, we're going to throw while driving full speed. Alright, let's do one driving half speed. Note that for the banana to go forward, we must have our left joystick in the forward position somewhat. And for this last one, I'm just, for demonstrational purposes, going to show what happens if you throw while not moving, but you hold in the item button for a while before releasing it. I just wanted to show that last clip to highlight that holding in the item button does not make the banana go farther. It only makes the banana tail behind you, which could be useful if you need it for protection. So, as you also saw, the banana flies farther the faster we are driving. This is analogous to how objects would behave physically in reality. If you can throw a ball, say, 30 yards from a standstill, then you can throw it even further if you throw it off the back of a moving vehicle, assuming you're throwing in the direction the vehicle is moving. This is basically because the ball is moving faster in the throwing direction, since it will move at the velocity you threw it plus the velocity the car is moving, so the ball will travel farther before it hits the ground. The same applies to the banana peel in Mario Kart. If you were driving ahead and you hurl your banana forward, it will go farther the faster you are driving. I don't want to turn this into a physics lesson, so hopefully you have been convinced by now that the distance you throw your banana goes up as your driving speed increases. The good news, though, is that most of the time, you'll be driving at full speed while sniping. So, getting used to how far your banana goes while driving at top speed is an essential skill. And real quick note, while I haven't tested it, it's worth noting that the CC of the race may slightly impact how far your throw goes. Theoretically, since the kart moves faster in 200cc than say 50cc, a banana throw while driving at full speed should go farther in 200 than in 50cc. But admittedly, I basically only ever play on 150 and 200cc, and I don't notice much of a difference. If you have any input on this, let me know. And if you are someone who races on all different CCs regularly, you may want to take this into consideration. Now, the best way to learn how far a banana goes while driving at top speed is simply to practice. They're a fairly common item, and you can even adjust the item settings in versus mode to bananas only. If you don't have a good grasp of how far a banana throw goes, my advice is just to spend a little bit of time experimenting against computers under that banana-only settings. I would recommend starting with a flat track, like SNES Rainbow Road or Donut Plains 3, because the next thing I'm about to discuss complicates the issue a bit, and that is course topography. So far, we know that our driving speed impacts the distance the banana peel throw goes, but the course topography is also a vital determining factor in where our banana will end up. Fortunately, the physics in MK operate quite similarly to that of reality. Let's return to the ball throwing example again. Let's say you can throw the ball 30 yards from a standstill on flat ground. You can probably intuit that if we throw the ball downhill instead of on flat ground, then it will travel farther. On the other hand, if we throw a ball uphill, it will travel less distance. The reason this happens is because the ball will travel until gravity causes it to hit the ground, right? But if we throw it downhill, then the ball has to travel down farther before it hits the ground, so it will be in the air longer. Its movement in the throwing direction is a constant if you ignore air resistance, so this longer air time just leads to a farther distance thrown. The opposite is true in the uphill case, which leads to a shorter distance thrown. The same thing seems to be true in Mario Kart. If we throw a banana right into the side of a hill, it'll land just in front of our cart. If you throw a banana from, say, a great height, like the top of a bump in Excitebike Arena, then it'll travel a huge distance before sticking its landing. Check it out. This may seem, at first, like a discouraging complication. And unlike the speed of the kart, the course topography is rarely flat and constant, especially on newer tracks, and it's entirely out of our control. However, with a little bit of practice and learning, I guarantee you can learn to see those changes in elevation as opportunities. Like I mentioned before, you're usually going to be driving at top speed, and once you're used to the distance a banana travels at top speed on flat ground, you'll be able to make some really accurate throws. The only problem is that, in my opinion just, the distance you can throw a banana in this situation isn't that far. Furthermore, unless you slow down, you won't be able to throw the banana a shorter distance, and slowing down to try a snipe usually isn't in your best interest. However, if there are elevation changes present on the track, this opens up a much wider range of distances available to you when sniping. Let me explain this a little further. We've already discussed how course topography impacts the banana on the landing end, but it can also impact the banana on the throwing end. This is, I presume, because your throwing angle is different as you drive up and down hills and bumps, as is the direction of the kart's momentum. But let's just tackle angle first. A different throwing angle yields a different distance thrown. Again, we can look to reality for an analogous situation. Consider launching a ball, this time from different angles. If I pick an extreme, say 90 degrees straight up, the ball will land right where it was launched from. If I throw it now 1 degree down from there, so it's being launched 89 degrees up, the ball will move slightly away from where it was launched, but only a little bit, as it will mostly be moving up and down. It turns out that ignoring air resistance, an angle of 45 degrees will produce the optimal distance traveled away from the launching spot in reality, and in MK, I assume the physics is at least similar, but let's look at an example. Let's look at an example and find out. This example shows that, while still, when our cart is angled up on one of these small Excitebike bumps, the throw goes less distance than the throw from the ground. I'm not going to try to figure out the angles at play here, that would be the angle of the banana throw and the angle of the bump, but they look relatively similar. Maybe the bump is, say, 30 degrees, while the banana throw is maybe about 35 degrees. And if this is even close, then the result here makes sense. 35 degrees is closer to 45 degrees than 30 plus 35 equals 65 degrees. So, we would expect the throw from the ground here to go a bit further. However, there's a bit more to it than that when it comes to Mario Kart. If we are driving up a large hill, say one of the bigger bumps in Excitebike, not only has our throwing angle changed, but the direction we are driving has changed. On flat ground, all of the kart's momentum is just going in the horizontal direction, but on hills, some of that momentum is directed up or down. This further exacerbates the complexity of the issue, as now our throwing angle and our driving direction is altered, both of which will impact the distance the peel will go. But fortunately, these effects kind of come together. If you are driving uphill, your throwing angle is increased, and your driving momentum contains a vertical component. This ends up making the banana throw go higher and farther. Do be careful though, as your throw may hit the hill in front of you if the hill is too steep or high, so it's often best to make long throws near the peaks of a hill or bump. Similarly, if you are driving downhill or falling/gliding, the throwing angle is decreased and you have some momentum going towards the ground, which means the banana will tend to fly less distance here. Let's see some examples to totally understand everything. If understanding the physics doesn't seem to help much, you can always experiment live on the track. Let's look at just the flat ground example first. Now, going uphill. Going downhill. Coming out of a glider. And here's just some different stages of throwing midair, near the ground, at the peak, etc. Note how the banana peel behaved in each of the previous situations. I guarantee that with just a little bit of practice, you'll be able to get the feel down of how far your throw will go in all sorts of situations. But there is actually another thing that can impact the distance of the throw, and that is whether or not you are performing a trick. Tricks give you a boost and cause your character to perform some kind of, a trick. They perform a little trick. It varies, but they always do one. So throwing while tricking, especially while flipping forward, can cause your throws to go even further than normal. My guess to this is that it's because the character itself is now moving, contributing speed, so now you have the velocity of the cart, plus the velocity of the throwing motion, plus the velocity of the character, all contributing to one massive heave. But that's not important. This is really about timing, and the timing may take you a bit of practice, and it is never a high percentage play to try such a long snipe, but it may come in handy on rare occasions. So far, you may have noticed that all of the sniping I've gone over has been while driving normally. But what about sniping while drifting? Well, as you can see here, if we throw the banana peel while in a drift, it will launch basically in the direction our cart is facing. We can alter the direction of the throw slightly by adjusting the tightness of our drift, but it's important to reiterate here that you must have the left joystick in the forward position while throwing, at least somewhat, or else you will drop the banana behind you. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to snipe while drifting, only to drop the banana behind me because I was in neutral drift or something similar. Don't do this. Other than that, sniping with the banana during a drift is not too different than sniping while driving normally. Okay, so far we've gone pretty in-depth into what affects the throwing distance of our banana peel, but the other step to sniping is to predict where your opponent is going to drive, and then making an accurate throw. This is, fortunately, a lot easier with bananas and bombs than with the line items. This is because the banana only occupies one point in space on the map and then it sticks there, so we are basically just picking a spot where we think our foe will drive, and we are trying to get the banana to land there. But it's even easier than that, because a good banana sniper will try to get the banana peel to land just in front of the enemy, just in front of them. A throw that lands too far ahead of the enemy will be spotted, and the driver can then swerve to avoid it. So the closer the banana lands in front of them, the better. Thus, we don't have to do too much prediction at all. You can generally just assume the driver will continue on the path that they are on, whether they are driving straight or turning, since we want our banana to land right in front of them anyways. The key here is mostly to make sure our banana travels the right distance. If the track has bumps, we saw how to take advantage of those to make an accurate toss. If the track is mostly flat, however, you may need to slow down or catch up a little bit to adjust your distance from your target before making the throw. Don't forget that slowing down and throwing while slower will cause the banana to travel a little less far than usual. And also, please don't do this unless you are committed to trying to snipe, for example at the end of lap 3. You don't want to slow down and then miss. The final step is to make the throw. This might mean that you need to wiggle a little bit, right or left, to line up your throw, unless you want to throw it just right in the direction you're currently driving. For example, in this clip, my target is to my right, so I wiggle a bit to the right and then time up the throw. The size of the wiggle will depend on how far left or right you need to aim. And, lest I forget, as I mentioned in my line items video, before trying a snipe, you are going to want to survey the area first for potential attackers. Check your rear view. I mean, if there is someone in your rear view with a red shell, your banana is probably better served as protection. Always be aware of your surroundings. Do not let your bloodlust for sniping get in the way of smart racing. Now, let's see some examples where I put all this together and get some snipes. Okay, now I want to address a very specific sniping scenario with the banana, one that I haven't mentioned really, and that is sniping out of a glider. When doing this, it's important to remember what we talked about with respect to how our momentum impacts the throw. When gliding, the cart's momentum is virtually always at least somewhat downward, as is our angle, meaning the banana will not travel as high or as far as we might expect, especially given the height we're throwing from. But this can actually be a great benefit to the sniper. Long throws are naturally more difficult to land anyways. Watch how I utilize glider sections time and time again to yield banana snipes. I have found that banana sniping out of a glider is perhaps my most high percentage sniping. My technique is simple. Step 1. Pick a target. You want this to be someone a little bit ahead of you, who will naturally land before you, at least most likely. You want your target to land if possible, because hitting someone midair with a banana peel is quite a tough task. Step 2. Tail them. Follow along behind them in most cases. Rarely, you may have to cut across to get the snipe, but this is much more difficult as the timing needs to be more precise. While you are just learning, I suggest trying to come in from directly behind your target. But if you do perform glider vectoring, you'll find yourself cutting across a lot more often. Step 3. Again, make sure they land before you. This is not entirely out of your control. Often, I personally will tilt down on the joystick a little, which redirects your momentum up a bit, meaning the banana will go a little bit farther, and it also slows you down maybe just a hair for a fraction of a second, but it's well worth it to get the snipe most times. 4. Once they touch the ground or are just about to, release the banana. You should, at this point, be above and behind your target. The banana will land right in front of your target if your spacing and timing are correct. I'll refer to examples in this video to get an idea of both. Once again, an important point here is is to note that you need to tilt the stick forward to make the banana go forward, or else you drop it. In doing so, your cart angle moves towards the ground. That is, by tilting up. The longer you wait to release the banana, once you have put the stick into this up position, the less distance the banana will travel because we're angling down. In fact, if you wait until the last second before you hit the ground, you'll slip yourself as the peel will land right in front of you. On the other hand, if you release the banana right away, assuming you were tilting down on the stick to angle yourself up a bit, as I mentioned previously, then your banana can still travel a decent distance. And this is what you're going to have to do if you're making longer snipes. I will try to include a variety of examples here to really illustrate how to exploit this mechanic. Now, one other thing to mention before I move on to the bob-ombs. Take note of how your shots miss. Each snipe is a learning opportunity. If your bananas are coming up short, then maybe you need to be a little bit closer before throwing. If you find that you are hurling your bananas 2 miles too far, say like sniping from the top of a jump, maybe hold off a fraction of a second longer before releasing your item so you're going down a little bit off the jump. Again, just take note of how you're missing when you miss, how you're hitting when you hit, and then use that information to make a better throw next time. Okay. With that said, now let's get our bob-omb on. Okay, so we went pretty hard on the banana section. But the good news is that a lot of what we discussed there will generalize to the bombs. The biggest difference is that the bob-omb will bounce around before settling down, unless it explodes first. We'll get to all that. The banana only bounces off of, say, a ceiling or a very steep wall. Those are really the only times the banana will boink off something, otherwise it sticks. But the bob-omb even bounces off of the ground. Also, a banana makes your opponent spin out, while a bomb makes them flip and stop. That is, unless you hit them while their glider is out, or if they drive through an explosion but don't get a direct hit, they will also spin. Another difference is that the bob-omb does have slightly different physics than the banana peel. I'll show some footage to demonstrate. Note how the bombs land much sooner and don't go as far as the banana. Even including the bounce out of the bob-omb, the banana still ends up farther away. It's as if the bob-omb is very heavy, making it difficult for the character to throw as far as the banana peel. However, if we perform the same experiment, except we throw while at cruising speed, we note that if we include the bounce out of the bob-omb, that it can go just as far or further than the banana. That being said, if we judge the bomb by its initial landing position, it seems to come up a bit short of the banana in both scenarios. Also, I want to make a really quick side note, just a total side note, a bit of a tangent, but we saw that holding in the item button for longer does not increase the length of the throw of a banana, and the same is true for a bob-omb during races. However, during the battle mode bob-omb blast, holding in the item button for longer does make the bob-omb fly further. You can't tail the bob-omb behind you, but holding in that button will make it fly further. This totally changes the way you can approach snipes in that battle mode, and is a really interesting feature. But I'm mainly a racer, so I'll leave the battling to the battling experts out there. So from here on out, we're going to assume we're in the racing setting, and that holding in the item button does nothing more than tail the item behind you. Okay, back to what we were saying. Okay, so anyway, while most things we talked about with the banana peel do generalize here, as I was saying, you will want to get used to the slightly different physics of the bomb. Fortunately, both bananas only and bob-ombs only are available to choose as the options in versus mode, so you can get plenty of practice in. Like I said though, all that other stuff we talked about still applies. So as you already saw, The bob-omb, like the banana peel, flies further if you are driving faster. Your launch angle will also affect the bomb similarly, as will course topography, momentum, and whether or not you are flip tricking, and literally all that other stuff we mentioned during the banana section. Well, at least when you're gauging where the bob-omb will land. When trying to determine where it will stop, though, we have to consider what I call the bounce factor. Yep, bob-ombs bounce. Just in case I haven't hit that point home yet. This adds a twist to the sniping game, and while it can result in you bounce bombing yourself, you can also learn how to take advantage of bounces and get some great snipes. You really can. But before I do that, I need to briefly mention what I call the detonation factor. You see, bombs are strange beasts. Sometimes I'll throw a bomb right in front of someone in such a way that I think it should go off, but it doesn't. But what I do know for sure is that if you literally hit someone with the bob-omb, that is, if their cart physically touches the bomb, it will detonate. If you get it close to the path of another player, I also find that it will often detonate, but it's not a certainty, even though I think it's supposed to be the case. I'm not sure. Anyone out there, let me know. And the final way a bob-omb detonates is if its timer goes off. After it's done bouncing, the bob-omb will settle down and start pacing in tiny circles for about 3 to 4 seconds. Then it goes off even if nobody is around. Okay, so that's the detonation factor. Back to the bounce factor. And now that we've had that brief rundown of how the bob-omb detonates, we can really take advantage of the bounce factor. So, by bouncing, the bomb toss gains some distance. So even though your target may be out of range where the bob-omb will land, you can always count on a couple of bounces, increasing that range. You can also see in some of this footage here how the detonation factor comes into play. The bob-omb either directly hits the target, or the target gets too close to it and it detonates. But the bounce factor is also utilized with the detonation factor together. For example, note how I can keep the bob-omb low to the ground and skid it when dropping out of a glider. This is in sharp contrast to what would happen with the banana peel. That would just stick to the ground right in front of us, likely inducing a self-snipe. By skidding a bomb across the ground, you are increasing the likelihood of direct contact occurring between the bob-omb and your target, which is going to ensure an explosion. Similarly, you can bank a bomb off a wall, a hill, or even off of the starting banner. This could actually be useful. Say you want to backward snipe someone behind you. If they're too far behind to catch the explosion from you simply dropping the bomb, banking it off of the starting banner or some other similar obstacle can send it flying backwards a great distance, giving you a chance to get a hit. Okay, not only that, but when trying long snipes, you can use the technique of releasing the bomb during a flip trick, as we talked about earlier, at the top of a jump. The bomb will hit the ground with great velocity and then surge back up into the air. And if you can accurately predict where it will settle down, you can use this to get some really long bomb snipes. Basically, in summation, you can throw the bomb high and let it bounce out a long distance to get a lengthy snipe, or you can skid one low to get near targets. Find clever ways to take advantage of the detonation factor and the bounce factor together. Get creative out there. Of course, a lot of times you're just going to be on flat ground, in which case it's a standard snipe, but when you can, get creative. Personally, when I'm sniping with, say, a banana, I am most often aiming for the target, or just in front of them. With bombs, however, since they settle down and explode, taking out a sizable portion of the track, I sometimes aim for the target, and I sometimes aim for narrow sections of the track just ahead of the target, knowing the bob-omb will box them in. Consider this snipe on Yoshi Valley, for example. I'm following my target for some time with the bob-omb, but I am intentionally waiting for the bridge right after the big egg for the throw. I know that all I need to do there is get the bomb to land anywhere on the bridge, and then my target will be forced to either stop or drive right into it. The lesson here is that if you are throwing a bomb well ahead of the target, try to do so in a place where they cannot avoid it. like a narrow section of the course. In fact, it's important to generalize this idea. Regardless of what item you're sniping with, try to get the most out of your snipe. You want to maximize both the chance you get the hit and the amount of damage you do to your target. For example, here I get a snipe on Mount Wario, but doing so made me boink the wall. On top of that, my snipe hit my foe right before a boost panel, allowing them to quickly regain top speed. This is not a good snipe, as those two previously mentioned factors basically made it so that I gained no ground on my target. A good sniper will not harm themselves during a snipe, and they will make sure that it does as much damage as possible, like I said. So, for example, instead of hitting someone just before a boost panel, try to get the snipe to hit them while going over the boost panel, or maybe right after the boost panel. That way, they spin out and lose the boost. Similarly, you might try getting your snipe to hit someone just before a gap or a glider section, which will make them spin out and fall. Know the course you are racing on and plan ahead. Use your items strategically and get the most out of those snipes. Of course, you need to know your item too. Like I said, the banana causes a spin out, but the bob-omb causes a flip unless they're gliding or, in the case of a driver, passing through the explosion cloud. Thus, if you hit someone with a banana peel on a boost panel, they'll spin out and tumble over it. If you hit someone with a bob-omb on a boost panel, they will stop, flip through the air, then land where they were hit. This means they'll get the effect of the boost panel anyway, so in the case of a bob-omb, landing it just after the boost panel may be preferred. Okay, there is one final scenario I want to address, and that is sniping during anti-gravity sections. Anti-gravity sections are sections of the track where you may be driving on walls, upside down, etc., but you stick to the track because of the anti-gravity mechanic, which was new to Mario Kart 8. The question is, how does this anti-gravity mechanic impact our throw? Well, let's once again start with an experiment. Here I am on Mount Wario during the dam section. We are essentially driving on a wall here perpendicular to the ground. I want to throw the banana here to see if it falls to the ground, which would be towards the water, or if it too seems to be attracted to the anti-gravity track. Well, as we can see, the banana does seem to be attracted to the wall too. In fact, its behavior here seems to be basically what we'd expect without the anti-gravity at all. Unfortunately though, things aren't always this simple. You see, trying to figure out a general rule for the physics of a lob item throw during anti-gravity sections is quite difficult. This is because these sections typically involve a lot of curves, twists, and turns in the track, all throughout 3 dimensions. You got the anti-gravity, so trying to think about it theoretically is really, really hard. My advice, thus, is to simply experiment with your throws. Each anti-gravity section is unique. Some of these sections, like the dam on Mount Wario, will yield throws that behave virtually like a throw on a regular section of the track. Others, like this section of Electrodrome, yield throws that behave very differently than normal. The reason throws go short here is because of the curvature of the wall we are driving on, and once we have learned how short throws are here, we can take advantage of this to get some point-blank snipes. Of course, if we weren't expecting short throws here, we might snipe ourselves. Long story short, I would advise you to experiment with throws on different sections of anti-gravity track. Again, theoretically predicting where these snipes will go is near impossible, unless you are somehow able to keep track of how everything is twisting and turning through 3D space. Not me. I can't do that. So for me, I'd say an empirical approach works best. Go into the bananas only or bob-ombs only setting and just practice. I'm showing some different anti-gravity snipes here to help, but what I'm showing is not exhaustive. You'll find in some anti-gravity sections that your throw may seemingly drift right or left, or it may travel a weird distance. When this happens, note where it happened so you can be prepared next time you are trying a snipe there. Finally, throwing during a section of the track that transitions from regular gravity to anti-gravity or vice versa can get even more confusing. I mean, extremely confusing. I simply generally avoid doing this. However, if you must, I would use the same approach we just discussed. Go out and actually test how the throw behaves in these sections first, as theoretically predicting such a throw is, to me, simply too cumbersome. I'll try to include a couple of examples of throwing during transition sections here, but again, what I'm showing is not exhaustive. Go out and practice. All right, I think that's everything I wanted to get to. As you might have noticed by now, item sniping in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe can actually be quite complicated. Seriously. But heed my words and get out there and practice, and I promise that you too can become a bob-omb blaster, a banana peel pest, and a true sniper. Although, to be honest, there are probably some tricks and tips that I didn't even get to in either part of my How to Snipe series, so if you have some advice of your own, let me know in the comments. Even I'm still learning. Alright, that being said, hopefully this was able to at least help some of you sharpen your sniping skills. But yeah, that's all I have for now. I really appreciate you guys watching. If you're sad it's over, don't worry. Muggz has more lessons to teach in the future, so keep an eye out for that. But until then, that's all from Muggz' MK Classroom. Take care, and bye-bye.